Hey guys, another video for our castles, temples, shrines and old buildings in Japan playlist. So recently we posted a video of a walk through a 400-year hilltop shrine, and a newbie, someone who probably hasn't watched very many of our videos, commented and said, where's the explanation? Why is there no explanation? So it's a fair question. So the reason is, there's a few reasons. One is, first of all, that a lot of our viewers appreciate just the natural experience, so hearing the birds, and so places like that, usually what we do is just video walking through and don't add any sound to it at all, no music, no talking, nothing, so you can just experience it for yourself, what the sound of the feet walking on the gravel sounds like, and the birds, and what the natural experience is without some blah 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 going on. And that's sort of what our channel's about, right? We try to keep the talking to a bare minimum. So that's the first one. The second one is, as far as shrines and temples are concerned, you know, some sort of hey what's up type video is just not cool at all. The only reason I'm doing this one today is this is our local shrine. We come here all the time and there's no one here. So if I'm standing here talking to a camera, it's not going to disturb anybody else or make anyone else feel uncomfortable, because it's sort of not a very cool thing to do in a place like this, right? So the reason I'm doing this today is that person was wanting some explanation of what they were looking at. So today we're going to take a walk from the outside of the temple shrine. It's a shrine, okay, it's a Shinto shrine. So we'll take a walk from the outside to the inside and just have a look at a couple of different aspects of it, just to give you an idea of what we usually see here as far as behavior is concerned, what people do. There's some behaviors here that I'm going to show you in a second that we see here. You do see people do it. For example, I'll show you in a minute, coming through the toddy, coming through the main gate, often you see people bowing there, but not everybody. So not everybody does it. So some people do it, some people don't do it. And the reason that people do it can be a spiritual thing, or it might just be a cultural thing. That's just what they do. So as far as we're concerned, usually you don't have to do it. If you behave in a quiet and respectful, peaceful way when you come to a place like this, you don't have to do the ceremonial stuff. So you're not really obliged to. Normally people understand if you don't. To be honest, it's probably better with most of it to not do it, rather than do it and don't do it right, or, you know, sort of there's no real need, because Japanese people themselves don't all do it. So when we come here, we usually come here New Year, Spring Festival, Autumn Festival, some other random festivals. We'll come here. We've shown you a few videos from here, and when we come here, you know, you see it all the time, that some people do the things, some people don't do the things, so it doesn't really matter. So anyway, we'll start down at the main toddy, the main entrance, and we'll come back up here. Here we go. This is the main toddy, so the first gate to the shrine, and often you'll see people bow here, but not everybody. They don't always do it. So when they do, it sort of looks something like this. So sometimes there's a second toddy, or a third, or a fourth, or a fifth. Some places in Kyoto I've seen have got like 10, 12, 20 of them, big red ones. So not uncommon to see a whole bunch of toddy. Another nice thing about the shrines and temples, you guys would have noticed from previous videos over the years, is it's one place where the trees have been preserved, because, you know, people don't go cutting trees down in shrines and temples. So some of the most beautiful trees you'll see in Japan, shrines and temples, because they've been touched. Quite often in the countryside too, you'll see sort of a fairly sort of sparsely treed countryside with lots of houses, and then suddenly you'll see a little hill covered in trees, and there's a pretty good chance if you see that, it's a shrine or a temple. So guys, I've showed you these lots of times before, often with a cool dragon or something. This place is where it's for a ritual cleansing. So that's the idea, is that before you enter the shrine that you cleanse yourself. So it's sort of a symbolic thing. And again, quite often big festivals you might not see, sometimes nobody will do it. The occasional old person might do it. It's not a terribly common thing. People do it, but again, it's not super common. So again, you're not really obliged to do it. It's really cold and windy today, as you might have noticed. And the water's really cold, but I'll show you anyway what it's supposed to look like, sort of thing. Sort of everything I'm showing you is just one version of what we see. So lots of different people do things different ways. This is just one version. So take the water with the cup, but you don't want to put dirty water back in there because that's clean water, right? So bring it out over here. One hand, other hand, and then some in one hand, rinse your mouth, and then the last one, pour the water back down the handle before putting it back. The idea is that it cleanses this thing now, so it can be put back clean. But make sure, the most important thing, if you do this, which you don't have to do it, but if you do it, make sure any of the water you drop goes down here and not in there, because that's all clean. That's the idea of that. So again, it's a symbolic thing. You don't have to do it. With most of these things, my advice is don't do it. There's no need. So that's cold, that water. So this building behind me, quite often larger shrines will have a building like this. This is just sort of a utility building that you use, that they'll have meetings in there, or during festivals they'll use that to organise food or organise the mochi when they do that throwing out the mochi thing. So that's sort of a sort of a useful utility room. Sometimes the big shrines will actually have homes in the grounds where the priest lives, and quite often they'll live there with their family, and quite often shrines will have been in the family for generations. So an old priest will pass down, you know, his son will become a priest, and then he'll become the temple, the shrine priest or temple priest. So in this case it's a shrine, but a lot of this stuff's common to temples as well. By the way, we're going to do another video on temples another time, and when that video's made, it's going to be in the comment section of this one, and vice versa. So sort of a utility room, and then on the other side of that you can see a big kura, beautiful kura. We'll have a closer look at that. Gotta love a kura. Beautiful tree. So again, just a storehouse for practicality. But what a beautiful thing in itself, isn't it? Okay, so approaching the main shrine, usually people will stop here. When there's something going on, those doors there will be open, and there's a wooden box just inside there for donations. And so usually people will stop here and they'll bow, and then they'll go up there and they'll stop in front of that box and they'll bow, and then they'll throw in some coins or money into the box, and then they'll bow again. And usually after they throw the money in, usually they'll pray and sort of for whatever that they want to pray for, and then they'll bow again and they'll walk away. And I might show you that if I can put the camera somewhere. Here we go. You see it over here, and I'll show you sort of what it looks like usually. that sort of thing. So again, there's variations. It depends what people do. You're not obliged to do any of this stuff. To be honest, out of everything I showed you so far, the only thing I usually do when I come here is that first bow at the toddy, which is usually pretty relaxed. You know, people are pretty relaxed about that. They sort of stop and do a bit of a bow and then they walk in. And usually when we come here, that's about what I'll do. Almost nobody does the cleansing thing with the water. This is pretty common. New Year, almost everybody lines up here to do that thing, throwing the money in the box and doing the praying thing. So this building here is for people. So when there's something going on, I've showed you before, you'll see the shrine maidens dancing in there and the local dignitaries sitting around on seats. And when I used to do Kyudo, I did a few things inside shrines like that where you're sitting around on your knees in the shrine for an hour or so while there's some ceremony going on. So this main building is actually for people, and the priest will do things in there, and then I'll show you behind there in a minute. So I'll have a look at this room first. So that'll be familiar to some of you guys because I've shown you in there before with the shrine maidens dancing and things like that. And then if we go around the back here, so that's the back of that main building where the people will sit around in there and they have ceremonies and things. And then when it comes to actually give, what do they call that, where they bring, like usually it's mochi or oranges or depending on the season, it's different things that they bring to sort of give to the gods sort of thing. They'll come out, the priest and his sort of assistants will come out through this back door here and they go up those stairs to that shrine up the back there, and that's where the actual like kamidana is, where the sort of the god, place of the god sort of thing is the way to see that. And usually normal people don't go up there. It's usually just the priest that goes up there, and he has his assistants, and they'll have a line of people from in this main room to there. There'll be a line of people, and they'll pass the, what do you call that? The things that you're giving to the god sort of thing. And they'll have bowls with oranges or mochi or something else, and they'll pass them hand to hand up to the priest up there, and he'll put offerings. There it is, it's offerings, isn't it? And then the priest puts them there in the kamidana, and then he comes back down again. So that's the Shinto way of doing it, different from the Buddhist way of doing it, of course, which we'll show you another day. So that's about it for the shrine thing. So there's all sorts of variations to what I've showed you. There's some things here I probably haven't explained very much or very well, but that's sort of the idea, the general idea. So this will be the one and only time you probably ever see me talking at a shrine. I don't like doing it. I don't think it's the right thing to do, but the only reason I'm doing it today is there's no one here. Finally that sun came out. Geez, that feels good. It's been a bit cold and windy. Anyway, that's it. Hopefully that was of interest to somebody, and anybody that asks in the future when we post a video from a shrine where we don't talk, this will be the explanation. We'll go up this hill. Quite often at shrines you'll see other little shrines. Sometimes at Buddhist temples you'll actually see a Shinto shrine. So they're pretty cool about all that sort of stuff, you know. There's no sort of, they actually say, Japanese people actually say that they're born Shinto and they die Buddhist, because when they're born there's lots of Shinto ceremonies, and when they die usually it's a Buddhist ceremony. So they say they're born Shinto and they die Buddhist, and it sort of shows that they don't see any conflict between the religions, you know, between the ideas. And again, some of you might have seen a series of interviews I did years ago asking Japanese people about their spiritual beliefs. Are you religious? And almost all of them said no, but they all come and do the things at the shrines and the temples. So it's sort of often more cultural than spiritual, you know. Anyway, there's a better look at that Kamidana there. And then this is really common too. You'll often see lots of little shrines around a main shrine, and these will be for different reasons, different ideas with them. And that's really common too. You'll often see lots of little shrines around big ones. And then, yeah, as I mentioned, go to a Buddhist temple sometimes and there'll be Shinto shrines there adjoining them. So yeah, I see no conflict with that. Anyway, hopefully that's been of some interest to somebody. Just a moment of silence to enjoy it for a moment before we sign off. More videos coming soon.